Hello, everyone. I want to review AEW Collision, and I was at the Climate Center Arena. And before I start, I need to say something very personal to AEW and all you fans is that, I've done videos about AEW before in the past, and I know I've included footage of some matches, and I'm definitely going to cut down on that because I did get a copyright claim. And then the other thing, too, is that whenever I record, like, from now on, my attention is going to be more so when I review just people walking down to the ring or post match. I'm not really going to film any of the match action or keep that to an extreme minimum. Like if you see anything in this video that is actual footage, the point is to analyze, provide good B roll so this doesn't become boring. And then the other thing is that to really the point of this is to help AEW become a better program. So ultimately, this is not to take money away from AEW. It is to help AEW make money. So with all this said, this also goes with the copyright law of using footage for educational purpose and for also critique purposes. So the opening match. So before collisions start, what they usually do on these shows is have Powerhouse Hobbs do a squash match, and I honestly think that they should open collision with this because you want to treat Powerhouse Hobbs like a big deal. So this is not really appropriate for him. Just like with Ryback, that they featured him on television. They didn't do something like say, "Oh, do it during the dark matches." And then the other issue that I've had that I may forget to tell you guys later on is that they had three squash matches, so it felt very, very predictable. So this match started with Andrade versus Juice Robinson. I really like the high spots. I want to see Juice talk more on the microphone or be developed outside of a faction. I think that he has really great voice, he has great verbiage, and I do think a faction is just a way for him to be with his friends. I do think that he's a little bit stronger if he gets away from the Bullet Club faction because I do think that he has a lot of personality. So I think him going on his own would be good. Or even if he did something like Ray Phoenix versus Juice Robinson for the international title would be good. I did not like Andrade winning because it's obviously predictable. You can't always open every match with a babyface winning, every show with a babyface winning, and then also too, I think the way it was built is that he's going through all the members of the Bullet Club, so it is kind of predictable, and I usually don't like that. It's just a little too predictable, and it also buries the heels. The Kingdom versus the Best Friends. I do appreciate the spots, but it's a typical AEW match where there's lots of moves, and I really don't care about both. Really, I think with the Best Friends that I know, like it's usually Orange Cassidy that everybody cares about. So honestly, if Orange Cassidy came out and stopped like the Kingdom from cheating or whatever, I think that that would be good. Or if Orange Cassidy was there and then he got his ass kicked or whatever by the Kingdom, I think that'd be good. But really, the Best Friends don't stick out to me unless you have Sue or unless you have Orange Cassidy. So I didn't really care about this. I know they've been trying to really push the Kingdom as a faction that cares about Roderick Strong, but so there is some layers to them. But I don't really care about the Kingdom. And also too, I don't like Roderick Strong because he does look kind of stupid. Wearing like a neck collar and being in and out of the hospital. Like honestly, if he's in a tournament wearing a neck collar and being in and out of a hospital, it's like how the hell that really buries everybody he beats, really. So it's almost because I work at a hospital, so a hospital patient whoops my ass and they're wearing a neck brace and they're like keep going in and out of the hospital. It's just kind of a stupid look, really. So I think with the Kingdom, if you want to make them a big deal, you have to kind of make them associate with Roderick Strong and have them help him win, or have him, or be like, Roderick Strong's like, oh, well, actually, you're not having a match with me, you're having a match with the Kingdom. And that would be how to like use them like heels or whatever. Second squash match is Julia Hart versus Local Jobber. I appreciate the violence and what Julia Hart was doing, like banging her head against the on the mat, and I believe that Julie Hart is the most over woman or the most developed woman on the roster since Jade Cargill left. I know it was for Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa for a long time, but they've kind of, and I agree with what Jim Cornette said that they've really kind of diminished both both Thunder Rosa. I know that she's injured, but definitely Britt Baker. I also did not. Chris Statlander came out at the very end. There are two things I did not like about it. It looks very bad for her to come down with a bunch of people because it makes her look weak. Um, Honestly, if it's between her and Julia Hart, it should be her coming down by herself. Because it would be just like it would be just like if John Cena was gonna face Randy Orton, and John Cena came down with 4 or 5 people from backstage. It makes him look weak. You need to have people come down by yourselves. If it was John Cena versus the Roman Reigns, who has the bloodline help him, it would make sense for John Cena to come down with a bunch of people just to kind of even the playing fields. If it's going to be faction versus faction or a faction interfering in a one-on-one match, you need to have multiple people. But it just didn't work like that. I mean, Chris Statlander looked weak. If you had all members of the House of Black, the 3 guys down there, then it would have worked to have have a faction. And then also Chris Statlander, for the love of God, can we please stop saying I defeated the undefeated? You should have said I defeated the undefeated Jade Cargill, because I do not like this shit of, well, you can't say WWE. We work for the other company or the other company up north. Just say WWE. Say Jade Cargill. It's just beyond asinine. It makes it, WWE does that a lot, but that's kind of stupid. Acknowledge other companies. Kenny Omega versus and Jericho versus the Gates of Agony. This is your third. I made a mistake. So there were like 4 jobber matches on Gates of Agony. I would like to see Alpha and Omega versus FTR, or Adam Cole and MJF in the future. I think that they do great matches. Jericho and Omega have great match chemistry, and they also have great crowd reactions. Because I know that's been a criticism of Kenny Omega, that he's kind of like a video game wrestler where he does a lot of like moves and finishers over and over. So sometimes when you work with somebody who's from the WWE, you can kind of teach Kenny Omega things, or sometimes you see a little desaturation of Kenny Omega's over offense. And I put in my notes too that again, it would be better if it was a former heel tag team or 2 heels that are well known. Like if they did Jericho and Omega versus Christian and Luchasaurus, or I know Jurassic Express doesn't exist anymore, but let's say you brought Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus down there. That would have been a good match. But I do think that or if they did like somebody like, okay, well, Brian Cage and somebody was like a 6-man tag team winner. So if you did something with Brian Cage and somebody else, that would be good. And also Brian Cage has won the Impact title. So I think that what I didn't like is that the Gates of Agony have not done enough to kind of be self-established, really. So it didn't make any sense. You can even have done like maybe Shane Taylor and Samoa Joe or something like that. Even like Miro and Samoa Joe or something like that. Like just people with more names. It means more to do that. There's some things I want to say before I go to the next 2 matches. I really appreciate Christian Cage's promo, like talking about, I think like Darby Allin's uncle like took a ride with him. Darby Allin's uncle was drunk and then he killed himself, but Darby Allin survived in a crash. That's what I got from it. I'm not sure if that's exact truth, but what I would say is that is that really I appreciate Christian being so like heartless. And I also am a little worried because if Edge joins the company, he needs to really be after MJF. Like do MJF versus Edge at Full Gear. That would like sell out. I do not want to see Edge versus Christian, because that would be a very, very stupid move. It would just be like if you brought in CM Punk and you said, okay, well, CM Punk's going to go after Gunter, the Intercontinental Champion, that would be stupid. If CM Punk has a lot of momentum, maybe he wins the Royal Rumble and you have a match at Elimination Chamber or whatever, but you can't take somebody so hot and then put him towards a secondary or a third or a tertiary title. Um, it doesn't make any sense. The other thing is that they said that there was going to be a match between John Moxley and somebody else. I really would say that I really would love to see Ray Phoenix do double duty. Like he already has a match on the card, but I would want to see Ray Phoenix versus whoever they had for John Moxley because it does feel like a little fuck you to him because Ray Phoenix has a lot of potential as a wrestler and they really should just give him like a title reign, maybe like 3 months or 4 months, like a quarter of a year to see what he, like a third of a year to see what he can do. So honestly, he should have had a singles match and a tag team match on the card. Make him do double duty, just because it can really show people that they really are not going to do something like maybe next week you're going to take the title off of him or whatever really. So I really think that they should do that. Another thing that I did not like is Claudio Castagnoli versus Josh Barnett. I know that's kind of like the dark matches, but that they're going to have on the show, but I think on the pay per view. But one thing I don't like about it is it's two big men. And what AEW likes to do with big men is they don't feature those matches. And honestly, like if you want to have two behemoths like fight each other, you should have just kind of had Josh Barnett maybe beat down Claudio Castagnoli after maybe like at Grand Slam or something. There should have been a bit of a build, but because you know you need to also feature big men and to show that you are a company with big men. And whoever wins that should go after Wardlow because I know they don't have anything for Wardlow, but you need to kind of just find that balance of high flyer wrestlers, which they do with luchadors, like tour de force wrestlers like Kenny Omega, where it's a lot of moves, and then they also have like big personality wrestlers like MJF and Chris Jericho. Tag team they do a good job with. They don't do a good job with their women's division. They're starting to get better, but AEW is not a company for big men. So they need to kind of like feature them better. And like I've said, like why not Josh Barnett versus Claudio Castagnoli, or why not Josh Barnett versus Powerhouse Hobbs if you treat him like a bigger deal. So it is kind of a little sad that they feature big men poorly. And I know like there is that thing too of like, you know, if Andre the Giant was in AEW, then it's like, you know, you feature him correctly, then how the hell are you going to actually beat him? But then another problem is how do you kind of find that middle ground of featuring a big man and keeping them in the box you want to keep them in the parameters you want to keep them in. The only big man that's probably featured well right now is Captain Insano, because at least with Captain Insano, he in the gimmicks, he always wants to have a good time and have fun, really, and just be there and live life, really. He kind of establishes that he doesn't care about being in the ring. He just cares about being a character. So, therefore, just like with Andre in the 80s, like he said that he wanted he was friends with Hogan, so he wanted Hogan to just enjoy his title reign until they had that match. So, you establish that with Big Show, but you don't really establish that with other big man wrestlers. So, I do feel if you're a big man in AEW, you know, it's very sad that they don't know how to book them that well. It's not that hard. It's just laziness, and it's just treating them like, you know, as I said, it's like treating them like everybody else, really. You have to kind of make your big man an attraction, really. And just because you make a big man attraction does not mean they can always go after the heavyweight title or they're forced in that position. Look at Jade Cargill. She was undefeated, but you had an undefeated person do so well and be successful outside of just, well, we have to put you against the champion and you have to beat the champion type of thing, you know. So it's unfortunate they've lost the art on how to work with a big man. The next thing that I would say is that the Righteous beats the Jobbers. So automatically Hobbs, Julia Hart, Kenny Omega, and Jericho and the Righteous are 4 job matches. But I will say that Omega and Jericho being the Gates of Agony, to me, it's a job match because obviously you know they're going to lose. You're not going to beat 2 former AEW champions. But so I kind of consider that a job match. It's like against the odds, really. If you had John Cena and Randy Orton face, you know, face like the face FTR, face an NXT FTR, you know who's gonna win. So I consider that a job match. But you had four job matches in one night in a period of like 2 hours. Not good. I really appreciate the beatdown at the end of the match. I also appreciate them doing stuff with the Righteous because you need to feature them like a big deal, and they did that because it gives you more exposure to who they are. And like I've said, that instead of having them face two jobbers, they should have done Ray Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. or I believe it was Kazarian and Daniels or Kazarian or Scorpio Sky. Oh, it's either Kazarian and Daniels or Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. That was the first tag team champions. Like I think that would have been a better match. Or even if you did something like have them face FTR and beat FTR or whatever, like do something that's gonna make them kind of super over or whatever. But the best way to do is maybe do a former tag team. And again, it kind of goes down to that philosophy you see with Tony Khan of being afraid to book people, make some people lose. So you can't always just have jobbers or tag team schmazes in order for people to win, or in order for the people you want to win, and for those other people to take losses. So there needs to be work. The last one's an 8-man tag team. One thing that was bad about this match is most people in the crowd when we were all watching it, most people just didn't understand how the pinfall got counted, or what led to like the bell being rung and Ricky Starks making being decided the winner. I wasn't sure it was a submission or a pinfall. I didn't even see it, so it felt like they just called it out of the blue. I don't remember who he pinned, but I hope it wasn't Wheeler Yuta. More than likely it is, and I don't like that Wheeler Yuta always taking pinfalls because it's bad for him, and it kind of makes him look like the Butters of the group, really. The South Park Butters. Like he always has to be getting the shit. He has to be getting the shit job treatment. The bitch treatment. So I don't like that. And then also too, I really appreciate what they did. Like Starks winning is good. I also like the old school or the top rope walk that he does. I appreciate that. The next thing I really appreciate is Wheeler Yuta because he took like an ass whooping for a couple of minutes and he kind of kept kicking out or trying to escape or getting out of submissions and other things. And I appreciate that because it's not good to just, as I said, to have a Butters, which means you have a wrestler that's there to be in a faction to take the losses, and it's usually either the young guy or the greenhorn or whatever, or just like with Sammy Guevara, where in the Jericho Appreciation Society he had that role for a long time, and that's not good because how do you bring up young people? That's not good. You should kind of have them lose for a while, but eventually have them win or whatever. I also appreciate Big Bill being treated like a big deal. Like obviously, like the choke slams and the big moves is good, and definitely he could be a AEW champion, or there could be Wardlow versus Big Bill. There's a lot of potential in him, and also he should be speaking on the microphone more because he does have a personality. So like Big Bill and Ricky Starks could be a faction, or Big Bill, Ricky Starks, and then you throw in a third person. It could be even like Sammy Guevara, and they can face the Acclaimed or whatever. But definitely, like there's more you can do. Overall, I would say that that the show's not an A+. I would say that's not an F. It's more for me into the B- range. I do think that there's too much repetition of tag team matches. I know Jim Cornette would say lazy booking. I also really appreciate what Tony Khan has been doing. He really understands that a pay-per-view is not doing Marvel versus Capcom. And what Marvel versus Capcom is when you put a lot of matches on the card with no build. And that's bad because you can't really care about a match unless there's a build to it. Some matches are builds. Some matches have build, some matches don't. But the matches that do have a build is definitely Daniel Bryan versus Zack Sabre Jr., um, Jericho and the Golden Lovers versus Don Callis family, Darby Allin versus Christian Cage has a lot of build to it. FTR versus Aussie Open has build. The Righteous versus MJF and Adam Cole, and I was very happy that the Righteous really picked themselves up because they're just proving that they're not just ROH people. That this is a big deal to be facing the champion, and even if it's 2-on-1, that's still a big deal. Julia Hart, I'm very proud of that they did a great build with her. I think that some matches I'm not looking forward to is Luchasaurus versus Wheeler Yuta. It's a bad use of Luchasaurus. Um, Wheeler Yuta, no, Luchasaurus versus I think Nick Wayne or something like that. I'm not looking forward to that. I think that you're kind of almost giving. You're probably gonna have something where Nick Wayne gets like a two fall or whatever on him, so it does kind of look bad. The same way you have like the Undertaker versus Shane McMahon, and Shane's getting like a 2 count on him, or AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon and getting like a 2 count. So it's definitely has to be, a one sided ass whooping, and I don't think like Tony would do that. I think Tony would be like, okay, Luchasaurus, you got to be a little nice, and that's not good. The Acclaimed has kind of been featured poorly. They've kind of not. They're kind of almost like the show that the team that usually ends Rampage. So most people don't watch Rampage, so I do think that's a little. They're just there to fill a role, really. So I don't like that. There's more that they can do, and more that they've done in the past, really. Like, really, when they were being the tag team champions, from, their whole feud with Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee, that was the best that they've done, really. And that rise to the tag team champions, that's the best the Acclaim can do. They've not really lived up to that, and they need to start doing disc videos. They need to be true. Like, they need to kind of get to being a big deal. They can't just be up kind of be like, oh well, we're established. No, you're not. When you're a WWE Hall of Famer, then you're established. The next thing that I want to say is that I really wish Hobbs was on the card. They should have more matches. They should definitely have had a Rey Fenix match, and they should have had a Hobbs match. Like, have Hobbs versus Tomohiro Ishii, or a big man wrestler, or a sumo wrestler. And then they should have had the women's championship defended. And that needs to really happen. I think every show they need to have every pay per view of the women's championship needs to be defended, both titles, because it's getting a little fucking ridiculous. And honestly, I think Tony Khan should just, as I said, he needs to not let he needs to have somebody else run the women's division, because it's terrible. Like, whoever's booking Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, that honestly should have, like, that person should be promoted. And if it was Kenny Omega, then you gotta say, like, motherfucker, you need to get back to that high point. And if you can't, you're done with the women's division, because you need to have at least, I would say, 3 women's matches, 3 women's feuds at all times. It could be, TBS champion, women's champion, ROH champion, or 2 women outside of the ROH, title having a feud with each other. But there should be at least 2 or 3 women's matches on every pay-per-view card. So I wish. So you know what? I'm looking forward to the whole mission of the entire show was to kind of give you a taste of Wrestle Dream, and they definitely done that. And I think that that was their mission. It was ultimately saying, we're in Seattle. Tomorrow's going to be a great night, and we're just going to give you a taste of it with some of the matches. People who need some more time establishing themselves need to be established tonight, and I think mission accomplished. And I think the last thing that I would say is I appreciate Tony Khan coming out. I did think that when he was addressing the ROH crowd, he was definitely he sounded like Byron Andreas, me, because he was talking a little too much. He needs to kind of take some classes on how to speak a little bit more concisely and cut his dialogue down. That is always important in good conversations. I know he's excited. I know he's enthralled, and I appreciate his enthusiasm. And I appreciate him thanking the ring crew because I don't think Vince McMahon would ever come out and address a crowd and say like I appreciate the staff and whatever. I don't think he would ever do that because he kind of looks at people as chess pieces. And Tony Khan, I don't feel Tony Khan. I feel like Tony Khan has to do that. That's part of being a promoter. You have to look at people as chess pieces. But I think Tony Khan has more of a heart behind him, where Vince is more of a his heart is on the money. His heart's more on the money than people. Tony Khan's heart is more on people than money. So that's what I see. So overall, really great show. I'm happy that I went. The Ticketmaster was horrible because I could have gotten a better seat, but it was malfunctioning. I know I did a video about that, and it wasn't fair that I didn't get the seat that I wanted. But where I was sitting was really good. I think I paid $85. $85 well spent, and I'm excited for tomorrow.